right, good afternoon, folks. Thank you so much for joining us this week for our second Facebook Live event. We're here today again from the U.S. Embassy to answer your questions about U.S. Embassy services for American citizens in light of COVID-19. So my name is Ildiko. I'm one of the public diplomacy officers here at the U.S. Embassy. I'm joined by Amelia, who is our Chief of American Citizen Services.
Hi folks, how are you?
So we did want to apologize. We know there were some people who wanted to join us last week and were not able to connect. So giving this a few minutes, making sure everyone is on the page and can connect before we get started. And as a reminder, please do post questions to the Facebook event page in the discussion section. I'm monitoring them right now and we'll answer them as they pop up. We see someone has a question already, so please go ahead and post it.
Throw it out there.
As a reminder, please don't post any of your personal information, such as passport numbers,
Don't do that.
those sorts of information. If you have a more personal question, you can always email it to us, and Amelia will be providing you with many different ways that you can contact us here at the Embassy.
Yeah, so if you do have a personal situation, you don't want to post it on Facebook, please send us an email at acsdoha@state.gov. That's A like American, C like citizen, S like services at acsdoha@state.gov.
So let's get started. Amelia, can you tell us any updates about what new information we have since we spoke last week?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Everything is basically still the same in Doha. That said, we just want to hammer home some of the things that we talked about last week, especially in light of the global World Health Alert that puts it at a level 4 for the entire world. And if you'll permit me, I'd like to quote Secretary Pompeo, who talked about this in a press avail in the last 2 weeks. He said, "We do not know in some countries how long the continued commercial flights in your country may be able to operate. We can't guarantee the U.S. government's ability to arrange chartered flights indefinitely where commercial options no longer exist." So what that means is that if you do not see yourself staying in Qatar for the foreseeable future, you should leave now. And I know that that's a really, really difficult decision for people to make, but that is our guidance. It could get harder to get back to the United States.
Great, thank you. So again, can you tell us, is the U.S. Embassy still open? What kinds of services are we offering here?
Sure. We are still open, and let me get to that in just a sec. I see a question from Melissa. To check on friends who have been admitted to for COVID-19 when the hospitals don't answer. Our understanding and our experience so far is that as long as kind of people who have been admitted to the hospital are healthy and able to do so, they have access to phones or an iPad and are able to call their friends and family. So I would encourage you to get in touch with them directly. The hospitals might be overwhelmed, or not overwhelmed, but just busy helping patients at that time. Yeah. And then we have another question. This is another question we can talk about. We understand that the kind of restrictions on non-Qatari citizens is continuing here in Qatar. That has been extended. We understand that this is really, really difficult for people. It has, kept families apart. That said, it is continuing for now. And I just want to clarify that there was some stuff that came out in the Qatari news recently that says, Qatari permanent residents may come back in. That is not RP holders. That's something different. Those are people who are kind of in the process to become Qatari citizens. It's a different process. So even if you have a Qatari RP, unfortunately, you are still not permitted back in the country per Qatari regulations. We have a question about what the foreseeable future is. That's a great question. I don't know. I do not have a crystal ball. We do not know how long this is going to last. And I'm sorry, I wish I could provide better guidance. Right now, we're all in the same boat where we don't really know what's going to happen. We're taking different things by day, by week, by month. So that's where you kind of need to talk to your family, decide kind of what works for you. And I think, and I don't say this to scare anybody or to shock anybody, but a lot of what we're dealing with right now are less than ideal options. So if you're somebody who thinks, well, gosh, I would like to go back to the United States, but I'm waiting for ticket prices to drop, or I'm waiting for a flight route to a specific US city to open back up, I would encourage you to take the best option available to you at this time. Sorry, I talked a lot.
Okay, no problem.
Pass it back to you.
So I did want to go back to one of our earlier questions about U.S. visas.
Yes.
So what kinds of services is the embassy offering at this time to American citizens and to non-American citizens alike?
Thanks for bringing me back. So for U.S. citizens, we are open for services. Please send us an email to that ACS Doha email address to schedule. We're doing everything we can to encourage social distancing, to not have more than one person or one family in the waiting room at one time. So, we are just kind of offering fewer services than we usually would. That said, if your passport is set to expire in the next 2 months, or if you have a baby and need to get that baby registered as a U.S. citizen, please email us and we would be really, really happy to see you. Okay. In terms of visas, visa services are suspended all over the world. Okay. The good news is that if you have paid that MRV fee, that interview fee, your payment is good for a year. Okay. So hang on to it. Once this is all over, you can still schedule an appointment to come see us then. Okay.
Okay, great. So we've seen a lot of information in the news recently about repatriations. I know this is something we talked about last time, but I think it's really important to explain what that means and especially what that means for us here in Doha. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Can you repeat that for me real quick?
Sure, the repatriations.
Sure. Yeah, so repatriations, we are seeing a lot of that in the newspaper and in the news, on the TV, in the newspaper. And really the U.S. government is doing, the State Department, a whole of government approach to bring people home when they've been stranded in places. Qatar Airways is still flying. No one here is stranded. If you would like to go home, please book a ticket and do so. If you do not have the funds to do so, please contact us. We may be able to assist with that, okay? We're not there yet, okay? We might not ever get there in terms of doing repatriation flights from Doha. And again, I don't say this to shock anybody, I don't say this to scare anybody, but just a couple of the facts or realities about what a repatriation flight looks like. Pets are not allowed, okay? Business class or first class is usually not an option. Where you go in the United States is usually not an option. You and your family members are not guaranteed a seat. You have to pay for your ticket, and it's often the same cost or more than a commercial airline ticket would be. So like I said, I don't say this to scare anybody. I say it to provide you with the information that you and your family need to decide what you're doing here in Doha right now, okay?
So I know some of our U.S. citizens are here in Qatar with perhaps family members who are not U.S. citizens. Would the non-U.S. citizens also be able to go on a U.S. Embassy facilitated repatriation flight if it does come to that, or what should those do?
Every once in a while, but not usually, and I would not count on it. If you have family members who are not U.S. citizens, I would really encourage you to have them get in touch with their own embassies here in Doha. We have a question from Ashraf about, is there any new visa from doctors or people working to fight coronavirus? There is not. If you are a doctor or a medical professional who already had a valid petition or a valid case kind of already undergoing, and you're ready to go back to the United States based on that to do work medically in the United States, please send us an email. But if you're just somebody who wants to help, we really appreciate that. That's incredibly kind. But our visa services don't allow for it right now.
Great. So we have a question from Travis, who's currently here on a work visa.
Okay, so Travis, do you need an exit visa? Usually you do not, but you should check with your sponsor because according to Qatari law, sometimes Qatari companies can still have up to, I think it's 5% of their workforce need exit visas. So that's something that you should talk to your human resources about.
Great. And since we're on the topic of visas, I know people are concerned as a lot of contracts are coming to an end as summer approaches. who should Americans contact about their Qatari visas or their residency status here in Qatar?
You should work with your sponsor and with the Ministry of Interior. The U.S. Embassy, unfortunately, doesn't have anything to do with your Qatari visa or your residency status. And I would add that, if you have any other kind of bans on departing the country, those unfortunately don't necessarily go away in the time of COVID-19. So if you have outstanding loans or other holds that may prevent you from traveling, we would really, really encourage you to take care of that. We have a question from Carol Ann about how much time, if any, would be provided if American citizens were instructed to leave the country. We don't know. On some level, you're already being instructed to leave the country, right? Because if you're not intending to stay here for the foreseeable future, we're telling you to go, all right? In terms of whether we would have notice about the airport closing or Qatar Airways stopping flights, I don't know. We don't know. We might have notice, we might not. So another kind of difficult conversation, unfortunately, to have with your family, to have with yourself, is to kind of imagine if the airport were to close right now, how would you feel? If that makes you really uncomfortable, if that makes you really nervous, maybe it's time to think about leaving now. I'm not saying the airport's going to close, we don't know, but that kind of uncertainty is what we're kind of asking people to wrestle with right now. And we know it's hard. I'm sorry, guys.
Thank you. We've got a question from Raz about who can enter the United States right now. For example, can European national kids enter? And where can people find out more information about the U.S. laws?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great information that our Department of Homeland Security has. In general, there is currently guidance that does not permit anybody who's not a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, who has been in the Schengen zone, Ireland, the United Kingdom, Iran, and China in the last 14 days from entering. So it would really depend on where those children have been in the last 2 weeks. We are providing very, very, very limited notarization services, basically depending on how urgent the need is. Please send us an email and kind of let us know what the notarization is about. And we will, kind of be able to see if we can assist. Petitioning services for a family member for immigrant visa, they are on hold as well. Yes, unfortunately. We hope that we can start all this up again as soon as possible, but we're not there yet.
Yes. We are putting all non-emergency or non-urgent cases on hold right now because we're really trying to focus on the safety of our U.S. citizens here.
And that is worldwide. That is not just. Again, another question about the foreseeable future. I wish I knew. I don't. I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I could tell you when this is going to end, but we don't know. So like I said, kind of think about what you're comfortable with. That answer is going to be a little bit different for everybody. I so wish that I could provide you guys with a date or a clear answer, but at this point, I don't know that anybody can.
Okay, we have a question about Qatar Airways cabin crew from Ryan, and if they need an exit clearance.
I would refer you to Qatar Airways' human resources. I'm not sure. Dwayne, challenges on getting new passports? No. So right now we're really, really pleased we can still get U.S. passports here in about 2 weeks. So if your passport expires in the next 2 months, please send us an email. We'd be happy to see you and bring you in to renew that passport.
All right.
Our embassy staff staying? There's a question from Paula. Yes. So globally, there are some U.S. Department of State families that have departed, and that's not just in Doha, that's worldwide. And we've notified everybody about that kind of when the global health alert level 3 went out, but we're all still here, practicing good social distancing, but we're here.
Great. So we had another question about visas expiring, and for those who weren't on at the beginning when we went over this, can you talk about who or where they can find out more information about their visas?
About visas applying for a visa?
For Qatari visas.
Okay, I'm sorry. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you are concerned about your visa expiring, please get in touch with the Ministry of Interior. Our understanding is that they are still working, just with restricted hours. and they will be able to assist you.
Okay.
If you haven't, all right, the question is, can you support U.S. citizens to return to Doha ASAP for any requests to the Ministry of Interior? We are not. If you have extenuating circumstances, you are welcome to email us and we can take a look. But in general, Qatar has been very, very, very strict about letting kind of non-Qatari citizens return. So I'm sorry, that's just where we're at right now.
Great. And we have a question from Simon about an immigrant visa interview. So our visa interview is still going on for the month of April, and how do people know if they still have an interview or if it's been canceled or rescheduled?
Yeah, so we have canceled all immigrant visa appointments for April. We're going to reschedule people as soon as we can, but at this point it's a little premature to be scheduling because we don't want to have to reschedule you multiple times. We have a question about, I have American children, can I travel with them or not? That would be kind of a case-by-case question, kind of based on the status of the parent and if they had any appropriate travel documents. If you have a specific question about that, you can send us an email.
Just a reminder, folks, right now you can still buy tickets to leave
Yes.
the country.
Yes, and if you have a green card, if you are a legal permanent resident, you can go back to the United States. That is not a problem. We would encourage you to do so. I'm sure you all are sensing a theme. What else?
All right, keep the questions coming, folks.
And guys, we understand that, Qatar Airways is changing flights as they see fit, as they need to. If your flight has been changed, we would encourage you to get in contact with them directly. They are going to be the ones who are going to be able to assist with that.
Great. And I'd also encourage you, if you are thinking about flying out of the country, follow Qatar Airways and their announcements. They are making changes to their flight schedules and to their flight destinations based on international guidance.
Muaz, let me say the email address for you again. It's acsdoha@state.gov. So A like American, C like citizen, S like services, Doha@state.gov. Yeah, Alex, I'm really sorry. We have suspended immigrant visa questions for right now. Immigrant visa interviews for right now. Abdu, we'll see. Another question from Adoniram about doctor's visas working in the United States. Again, if you are a doctor or a medical professional who already has a petition or a J-type visa in process to go work in the United States, let us know. We're happy to get you back to the United States as quickly as possible. If you're just somebody who's interested in working in the United States and helping out medically, thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. But we're not currently extending those kind of services.
So we had another question earlier about volunteering to help, and we do appreciate that.
Yeah.
What we're asking now is that you just follow the the guidance of medical professionals and follow the laws here.
Yes.
And do your part that way in keeping everyone safe.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. Danielle asks, under what circumstances, conditions could the U.S. Embassy close here? We're not going anywhere. Even if flights close, we're not going anywhere.
Our main priority and the main priority of any embassy throughout the world is to protect the American citizens here.
Yes.
So we're not leaving before you folks do.
Yes. We're here for the foreseeable future. How about that? Miguel, how are you doing? Thank you for all your comments last week. Yes, I recommend flying back to the United States while flights are still available. Possible to apply for an H-1B visa, John, your question is a good one. It's a little bit technical. I'm going to ask you to send us an email, and we'll be able to figure it out, okay?
Okay. We have a question from someone, again, about Qatari visas. If the Qatari government...
Now, if the Qatari authorities are refusing to extend your visa, you should get on a plane and go back to the United States, okay? If and when, or if God forbid the airports close and the Qataris refuse to extend the visas at that point, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay.
All right, we've got time for about one more question, if anyone...
Yeah, and like I said, folks, I'm really sorry. I wish I could tell you when we will start interviews again. I wish you could tell you when this will all be over. I can't. So hang in there. I know that this is engendering a lot of difficult discussions. People are worried about their families and their loved ones. But just remember that we're going to get through this together. You need to make the best decision for you and your families, and we'll make it, okay?
All right, thank you all for joining us. Please stay safe, stay healthy,
Yes, wash your hands.
and have a great weekend.